Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Nick, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about clutch mates and when you should separate, and I actually have an example to show you guys of when's a good situation to separate, because we're having to do it here today. So the first thing I want to talk about is how long can you house clutch mates together. In my experience so far, we've been able to do 10 to 12-ish grams. You'll need to upgrade their tub size or their tank size in that time frame. I do think that probably housing everyone individually is probably better in the long run, but I don't do that here. Like I said, I haven't had any issues with it, and I've had good growth still and things like that. I have noticed that once crested geckos hit about 6 grams or so, if you do separate around that time, it does seem like their growth skyrockets when they're separated compared to when they're together. So that could be something I do in the future, but for right now, things are working the way they are, so I'm all good with it. Now, I want to give an example of crested geckos that hatched probably about 2 weeks ago now, and they're very, very, very small still. I just weighed them. They're both 2 grams. So as you guys can see, this gecko is very tiny, fits on my fingertip. So cute though. I mean, just really awesome. This one is still housed with its clutch mate, as it is just so small still. At this age, they don't really fight with each other. There's nothing, I haven't had any bad things come from crested geckos at this size when housed together. With that said though, if you are going to house clutch mates together, you need to monitor their weights. Not even necessarily just their weights. You need to monitor with your eyes how big they're getting. Maybe if you catch a shed cycle, hopefully they're both kind of shedding around the same time, so they're both eating about at the same time, eating as much about the same time, things like that. So just because it works here and it works for me and it works with 99% of our geckos, or 98% of our geckos so far, doesn't mean you'll have the same results. There are certain geckos that produce offspring that are much more, aggressive toward each other, things like that. And you'll find that, if you dump crickets in, there's a chance that a crested gecko will accidentally grab another crested gecko's leg in the process. I haven't seen any, blood, any scarring. I have seen it happen, but I haven't seen any really bad effects from it. And I think that's just because these guys' jaws are so weak. They're just really not strong jawed. So luckily they're not able to really break through the skin of another one. If it's about the same size, obviously an adult could rip up a baby. There's no doubt about that. But if they're around the same size, especially at this size, they typically can't do much. Now, we do know that when adults are housed together, there are situations where they can bite each other, and females who have been bred, you can tell by their neck sometimes if they had an aggressive male who got them really good and scarred them a little bit. So once again, and that's why I always think up until that 10 to 12 gram mark, in certain cases, I wouldn't go much past 15, just because I think that's whenever males start to drop and really become boys, and that's when a girl could really become a girl. And not that I don't think that there's a big risk of them potentially mating, but I do think that there could be a risk of some aggressive behavior, especially if it's a male and a male, it's a female and a female, because they're both just trying to grow still, and they're both kind of in this constant battle for, I need more resources, I need to get big so I can reproduce and I can help out our population. So definitely just something to watch. And I say this in every video, there's people who got lucky and they bought 2 or 3 crested geckos, they threw them all in a tank at one time, they grew up fine together. That happens. Typically that's not the case though. You'll hear about that, but that's usually not going to be the case. At some point there's going to be some adverse effects from raising geckos together their whole lives. That's kind of a no-no, because as I just mentioned, males will fight with each other. Females, if you get lucky and you get 2 females, you might be okay, but if you get a male and a female and he mates her too young, issues can happen. So best practice to me, separate at a maximum of 15 grams. Like I said, I try to do between 10 and 12, which that's still a pretty long time. For us, that could be anywhere from 6 to 8 months at times. There's other times where it's only 4 months, And another thing too to remember is that when these guys hit their growth spurts, it seems like they skyrocket and then they'll slow back down, then they'll skyrocket, then they'll slow back down. Some geckos are on a constant trajectory where they're just growing, growing, growing. So once again, you got to feel it all out, gecko by gecko, but for the most part, that general rule of 10 to 12 grams works pretty good. Since we're talking about cohabbing clutch mates, we just today had And I'm gonna be careful because he or she is just born literally today. Okay, so we have a little baby gargoyle here, really cute. I'm not gonna hold it for too much longer. I just want to show you guys. Put this little one up. A little stressed out there. The birthing process is a lot of work on these guys, so don't hold them after they're born for very long. I probably shouldn't even held it that long, honestly, because it's still kind of coming about to things. But with gargoyles, I house every gargoyle separately. And the only reason for that is because, well, number one, I have less of them. So it's much easier for me to house gargoyles separately because we don't get as many eggs from them, which is fine. But the number two reason is gargoyle babies have been known to be much more aggressive. Now, I don't have any like proof of that or anything. I've just talked to other breeders, and other breeders say, hey, you should probably house your gargoyles separately. And if they've been doing it for longer than me and they tell me that, then I'm going to listen to them and I don't need to relearn from their mistakes. So if gargoyle geckos are known to be more aggressive toward each other, then I'm not going to house them together. So that's just a precaution that I personally take. But now what I want to do, guys, is I want to show you the gecko clutch mates that we're having to separate today. And I'll kind of talk about maybe why we're having to separate them and why I think now's the right time. So let's go ahead and jump right into that, okay? Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I actually want to show you guys the two geckos. Both of these geckos were born November 25th, 2020. Same day, same everything, okay? Here is the little one. Really awesome. Now these are both Pam's babies, and I have two of other Pam's babies as well that I'm going to show you and how they're doing, and they've lived together their whole lives too. So this gecko just weighed in at 6 grams. Now, for being 5 months old, 6 grams actually really isn't that bad. That's actually kind of a good growth rate, and I don't mind seeing that. I would like it to be a little more, as you guys can tell. Here's the clutch mate. Here's the other. See them together. Now, I don't know, and you guys will be able to tell me on camera, to me, in person, their size difference looks massive, but on camera, I don't know how obvious it all is. This has become a clear-cut case of who's hoarding the resources, right? And I'm going to weigh this one now. Okay, so this one is 8 grams. This one is 6 grams. Now, remember earlier, I said it's important to not just look at grams, but look at body size. This guy, while he may be only, 2.5 grams more, I think this one's closer to 9, though, if I'm being honest, just from looking at it. This one's clearly taking advantage of more resources than this one is. So, with that said, I have come to the decision of time to separate them. Now, a month ago, because I know some of you were saying, Nick, why didn't you separate sooner? Could this have been avoided? The answer to that is potentially yes, but a month ago, or even 2 or 3 weeks ago when I weighed, it wasn't that big of a difference in weight. This one maybe had a gram on this one. Within the past week and a half to 10 to 14 days, this guy has really started to take more advantage of the bugs and been out hunting the little one here. So that concerns me enough to where I want to separate, and I truly believe by separating and giving this one bugs of its own, it will catch back up with its clutch mate here. Once again, though, as you can see, there's no bite marks or anything like that. I think that this one's just the better hunter than this one is. So you can really see him there. He's riding his big brother. So, like I said, this was just a time where I decided, hey, it's time to separate these two to give this little dude more comfort. I will be moving this one into this bin, and I will be leaving this one in its old home, just because I don't want it to be a stress during the move. This one has some grams to play with. If something bad were to happen, let's say it goes off food for a couple days, I'm not as worried about it as if the 6 gram baby goes off food for a couple days. Okay, so here are two of Pam's other babies, and kind of weird, they hatched a month apart. So these guys were born 10/20/2020, and let me get out the clutch mate. Both of these were in my holdback video that I posted about a month ago, I guess, by the time you're seeing this. So you can see both of these guys are huge. Both are doing well. As soon as I drop bugs in, they both go hunting immediately. But now I want to weigh them. Here you have two geckos, both at 9 grams apiece. So that's when I talk about, how are they doing together? Are they growing well? Is one hoarding resources over the other one? In this case, the answer is really no. They're actually doing a good job of sharing the wealth. Okay, so in the case of those two geckos, they are very, very close to actually having to be upgraded into a next size up tub. I think since they're both about 9 grams, they're actually both really close to just getting their own homes now. I'm going to give it probably about 2 more weeks or so. I might move them to like a 15 or 18 quart tub, let them live together again, but that'll probably only last another month or so before I'll have to get another 18 quart tub out, and then they'll both have their own 18 quart tubs, which is fine. So it's just kind of that natural growth progression that they go through, and that's what happens when you have holdbacks and you're planning and things like this. So I'll probably end up upgrading them fairly soon, but I think that they still have a little bit more time together where they'll actually be okay. And as you can see, so there we have, I showed you guys 4 geckos. Both of them, all of them, both sets, both clutches, came from the same mom, have been kept in the same conditions, in the same room, same everything, and they're less than a month apart, or a little over a month apart in birthdays. So when you take that into account, it seems like it's kind of random, and it seems like that's why you have to be so aware of how's everybody looking, what can I do to help this gecko gain more weight, what can I do, how can I help out this gecko who's lagging behind its clutch mate. Now, there is definitely something to be said too, though, that I have seen it kind of in the opposite of this, where a gecko, when it hatched, I thought it looked a little weaker. I didn't know if it was going to make it or not, but its clutch mate came out pretty healthy. When you put them together, I have seen it where it seems like the stronger gecko kind of helps the smaller gecko, in a sense of not like, hey, I'm going to raise you, but the weaker gecko sees where this gecko's eating from, and kind of maybe is better to like strategically plan out its like calories and things like that, so it knows I don't have to walk from here to here to eat. There's enough food left for me to grow. These geckos being 6-7 months old at this point, it's kind of weird that I'm separating them now. I've had to do it only one time in the past, and I had to separate those geckos I think after 3 months, because after 3 months one of them shot up to 5 grams and one was still at 2 grams. So it's kind of weird that these two geckos stayed roughly the same size within a gram of each other for 5.5 months, and then in the last month and a half, one gecko hit a growth spurt and it's doing better. So I just decided, hey, I'm gonna make a video on this because I think it's kind of important to see the how quickly things can change at times, and how, you know, one size doesn't fit all type deals, and we just have to kind of work with our geckos and see what our geckos are doing, kind of respond accordingly that way. 2 more clutch mates that are doing just fine together. These guys are a little younger, but they're doing great, and they're doing good together. They both have these super, oh goodness gracious. They both have these super fat little bellies that I love to see out of my geckos, and I mean, just stunning. These are just crazy nice geckos. These are actually, I'm actually gonna hold back both of these. Guys, I have too many holdbacks, so keep dropping name suggestions because we're gonna need them. But just to show again, it works out fine 99% of the time across all females, but you just gotta do your best, react accordingly, and do what you can for these guys. So with that said, guys, this is gonna wrap up the video. If you did get something out of this, please hit that like button. Please subscribe, channel's growing, I love to see it. And until next time, guys, stay safe and stay positive.